Chapter 2 The Date. It's the end of the school day, and Brian walks outside to see Amelia waiting for him. Amelia says to him, "I hope you don't mind, but we're going to stay here for our date." Brian says, "I don't mind. I'll go talk to my boss and see if I can make some food for us." Just then, they hear a car honk its horn. Amelia walks over to the car, grabs a pizza box off the passenger seat, and walks back over to Brian, who is now sitting at a table. "How did you know my favorite food is pizza?" Brian asks. Amelia says it's her favorite too. She sits at the table with Brian and opens the box. She says, "I didn't know what you like, so I just got pepperoni and cheese." They sit, talk, and eat for about 10 minutes. Suddenly, Brian says to Amelia, "Is the person in the car over there watching us?" and points towards a Ford Mustang that is sitting in the parking lot. Amelia says, "Hey, they are." So Brian tells her to wait at the table and heads over to the car to talk to the driver. When Brian gets to the car, the driver rolls down his window. To his surprise, the driver is none other than his best friend, Jack. Brian says to him, "What the hell are you doing here, man?" Jack tells Brian he's here to make sure he doesn't screw up his date. They talk for a minute until Brian says, "Come on, we have to go talk to Amelia." So Jack gets out of the car and they both walk back to the table and sit with Amelia. Brian introduces them to each other. Jack asks Amelia how the date is going. "Fine, until you showed up here, Jack. How could you get your best friend to spy on us, Brian?" she says. Brian gets defensive and tells her he would never do that, and then asks Jack why he would spy on them. Why he was spying on them. Jack says, "The only reason I was spying on your date is because you told me to, Brian. You told me you were nervous and wanted me to make sure you didn't screw up." Brian looks shocked and starts yelling at Jack. Brian and Jack yell back and forth while Amelia just sits there. They continue to argue until Jack says something to Brian that he doesn't like. "The only reason I'm friends with a fat idiot like you is because nobody else wants to." Brian, who doesn't usually resort to violence, punches Jack in the face. Amelia doesn't like where this is going, so she goes into the school to get help. When Amelia comes back outside with the principal and two teachers, Jack is on top of Brian on the ground, beating the pulp out of him. They pull Jack off Brian. Brian gets up off the ground, and the teachers take him inside to the nurse's office to get cleaned up. Meanwhile, the principal stays outside with Jack to help him. Amelia tells the principal everything that happened. The principal says to Jack, "It sounds like you started the whole fighting situation." Before Jack can say anything, the principal tells him that he is suspended for 1 week. He also tells him that when he gets back to school, he must serve a 1-week lunchtime suspension, and he has to stay after school to talk to the guidance counselor. Just then, an ambulance pulls up, and 4 paramedics rush into the school with a backboard. Before the principal even has time to open the door to go into the school, they rush back out with Brian on the backboard, put him into the ambulance, and drive away. One of the teachers who took Brian into the school comes out and stands beside the principal. The principal asks him what happened. "We got Brian to the nurse's office, and the nurse started cleaning him up. He was fine, talking to us and telling us what happened. Then he started coughing up blood and passed out. The nurse couldn't find a pulse, so the other teacher ran and got the defibrillator while I called for the ambulance." The principal asked if they got his heartbeat back. The teacher said they did, but it was weak. The principal tells Amelia and Jack to go home.